Hey, I'm back. Keeping it up because so far, oddly enough, it's working. Just looking at yourself and figuring yourself out and actually putting it into words. When you put it into words, it's like it solidifies the deal. It's like you're putting your signature on it and you're agreeing to it. It's like you're giving voice to it. It's like the thought is actually being born. It's like it's actually fact once you put voice to it. You can think it in your head 100 times, but until you actually say it out loud, then it'll just keep roaming around in there. Once you put voice to it and you hear it coming out of your own mouth, somehow that solidifies the deal. I'm not sure what part of your psychology, your psyche, I'm not sure what part of that it directly is coming from, but it's almost like you're admitting it to the world and yourself. Once you put a voice to it, it's almost like subconsciously you understand that once you say it, you can't take it back because you said it. So somebody somewhere may have heard you. The sound is out there. It's like that creates the thought. It solidifies it. I'm not sure what the terms are. To be honest with you, this is just how I see it. I'm not even trying to compare it to what anybody else has discovered or learned or what they know. I'm just telling you how I see it from my viewpoint. Because yeah, there's going to be 100 people out there who can whip out some degree and say, well, look what I got. I think you're wrong. I think you're dumber than hell. You know why? Because of this fact and this fact. Yeah, I know there's going to be people who do that. And I used to be the exact same way. And I think the reason that, at least for me, you would do that, the reason you would point out small indiscrepancies, maybe in technique or, small factual errors of, data that has really no impact on the subject matter. Like, if I said he was driving in a red car to here, and you're like, nuh-uh, the car was chartreuse, so therefore what you're saying cannot be right because you said a wrong fact. So if 1% is wrong, then all is wrong. That's I think the reason I sometimes think that when people are telling me stuff, or at least the reason I jump to that sometimes, I guess for me, the reason I jump to that, let's see what it would be. See, I'm working it through in my head right now. This is me continuing my own psychoanalysis. Alright, so if reason I would point out a fact, I think it's because I'm scared. I'm scared the other person is right, and I desperately want to be that person. That person who knows and doesn't have to ask a question. I think that's my main driving goal, or at least as far as like my ego and stuff goes. I think that's my main goal, is I never want to have to ask a question. Because I never want to bother anybody with having to answer a question. Because when I was little, like in the 2-year-old, 3-year-old range, I visually caught the cues of the adult I was asking questions to. I caught the little, subconscious cues, their body language. I picked up on it. I knew they were annoyed. I knew it annoyed them. So that drove me to be somebody who never wanted to ask a question again. I just wanted to know the answers without having to answer or ask a question. So I wouldn't be imposing on anybody. I wouldn't be bothering them, so that they wouldn't start to dislike me or see me as that annoying kid. Because I heard I was annoying a lot. And I've been telling Jesse he's annoying. It's my fault if he turns out like I do. I'm driving him to be like I was. Okay. Self-realization just occurred. See, that's how you work through problems. At least for me, that works. Once I start actually speaking it out loud, I figure stuff out better than if I just try to work it out in my head. Just putting voice to it and hearing yourself say it. It's almost like it locks you into a thought stream. It locks you into it, and that's the one you're deciding on. Because until you actually say it, I think in your brain, it's like a roulette wheel of possible solutions. And until you say one, then it's like, you're almost like the kid holding out on a self-test where the teacher gives you the answer and asks you to grade yourself. I think that's kind of what I must be like. That's what I am like. I'm just not admitting it to myself. I'm realizing it now. I'm just like the kid taking a quiz, a self-graded quiz, who waits to write down the answer until the teacher is giving you the answers to check yourself. That's what I am. Because I fear being wrong. And I don't want to be wrong. So rather than ask anybody, I try to find out on my own, so I'm not annoying, and I don't get to be known as that annoying kid. Huh. Kind of makes sense now. I'm sorry I'm pausing, but in my head I'm flickering back through a million different, things. Just, I think once you figure out what you are, once you figure that out, you start looking into how you think. You start really seeing some correlation to how you were brought up. The whole, natured versus nurture. You kind of start understanding that there's not a whole lot of the nature that really sticks out or drives you. A lot of it is nurture, but it's not just nurture. You have to have the societal background, the unfocused actions, the actions that take place in the background that the stuff a kid watches. Because as well as I do, a kid picks up on anything. You cuss a couple of times in the same room as a toddler. Next thing you know, you're at grandma's house and your kid looks up and says, "Hey grandma, did you see the size of that goddamn pond?" Yeah, out of nowhere, that's what happens to you. So I think to make everything better right now, well, it'd be in the future, not right now. It's like a field. You'd have to plant the plant, let it mature before you can, harvest the corn. You got to put in a little bit and wait to get it out. But I think television itself, the way it was used from its inception, painted a picture of how we should all act in our brains without us even knowing it. it painted a picture for us, because when we watched a television show, yeah, our conscious mind is focused on what the characters are doing. You know, what's the emotional linkage here? What emotional thing happened, you know, that keeps my attention? And then my subconscious is busy collecting information from the background. It's almost like a scanning AI. Your subconscious is basically an AI. That's exactly what your subconscious is. It's an AI that constantly works on trying to figure out how to keep you alive. It's like a self-defense AI. We know how to think. We're logical. We can actually work through problems. We can use language, so we can actually paint our thoughts to another person. Like if I'm thinking of a fish, that fish, technically you could say that it's in the digital realm. It's just like having a fish on a computer. Yeah, there's a fish on your computer monitor. It looks like it's 3D. You can rotate it, you can do whatever you want, but there is no actual material fish anywhere anywhere there. It's just an electrical signal that you interpret as a fish. So words are how we take that digital image that's in our mind and we solidify it and make it so another person is able to see the same thing we were seeing, you know, in a roundabout way. So if I can use my words to paint a picture so you see what I'm seeing, that would mean words are almost like 3D printers for our reality. I'm working it through in my head. I'm just putting a theory together. I know I've taken a turn. That's what ADD does to you. See? You're getting to witness my thought pattern because I'm just recording the whole thing on the way to the gym this morning. So your words are how you paint your thoughts so that another person can pick them out and interpret them and try to play the same picture in their head. Words are basically our reality's internet, because if I want to transfer my thought to you so you can, you know, give me a response with a thought of your own, we have to have some kind of a medium to transfer that thought back and forth. So that medium is language. That's how we transfer our thoughts. Maybe at one time we did have telepathy, like animals do. Not going to go into it. I know there's people arguing. I don't care. Not going to go into it, but maybe we used to be, you know, telepathic, and we lost it because of something. So we had to find a new way to transfer our thoughts to each other. That would mean that if a smart person who is manipulative, you know, because there are good smart people and there are bad smart people. So if a bad smart person who was manipulative, you know, greedy in nature, if they realized that if they controlled the actual meaning of the words that we use to convey that image back and forth between us, that would mean that if they could control that medium, they could slightly twist it and angle it to suit their own needs or wants without us ever knowing it. They could change the very words we're using to describe something in an emotional way that gives, you know, You know, words like when you're describing something like horrible, or, you know, adjectives that describe something in an emotional way to let you know whether I like it or I dislike it with just how I'm talking about it. Like, this food is delicious or this food is terrible. I can tell you what my feeling is using that choice of word. It's delicious or it's terrible. You know, hey, that's good, or no, I don't want that. So I let you know my emotional attachment to it so that you know if it's going to be something you want or something you don't want. So I'm conveying all of those emotions to you. I'm trying, but to you in a verbal form that you can try to pick out, you know, interpret, and you know what I'm talking about because of the words I used. You know how I felt about it because of the descriptive words I used. So, if I had control of language and I didn't like, what can I use? Okay, let's say I wanted all the gold. If I wanted everybody's gold because I really liked gold, then I could slightly modify words or use them in a weird like a negative fashion occasionally. Or like if I'm describing something else, I could say, God, this brick is about as worthless as gold. If I start using it in a negative fashion, subconsciously, you know, like not directly to you, saying, I think gold is dumb, you would know that that is a blatant attempt to manipulate you. But if I use that same, you know, descriptive terminology towards gold in an offhand way where it's not the subject you're focusing on, then I can get your subconscious that isn't doing the actual listening and processing, that subconscious, that background AI that keeps you safe, that background AI is going to pick up on what I'm saying, and it's going to tuck it away and store it to keep me safe at a later date. So at a later date, when I think of gold, that little subconscious AI is going to reach in my vault, pull that out and say, gold, this is what I heard about gold. Just like Google. Google running in the background is just like your subconscious AI. So that anytime I think of an object, my Google gives me, here's what I found. Anytime I think of an object. So when you're talking to me, you're trying to paint a picture for me. But my Google has been corrupted so that it only gives me the results it wants me to see. So if I had somebody talking negatively about gold or about whatever in the background during conversations I may have had, my AI picked up on that so that in the future when somebody mentions gold, I have a negative thought about it. So I don't have a triggered, yes, I want it response. Instead, I have a, ooh, get rid of it response. Which would make me less likely to acquire any of it. Which would make it more readily available for somebody who wanted it, especially if they had control of what I was listening to and kept my attention, and they could control what was going on in the background. So if the government had control, I'm just throwing out a theory, if the government had control of Hollywood, then Hollywood could pump out movies that had subject matter that all of us would want to focus on. We would want to watch it. It would capture our attention. So the better special effects, the more catchy that movie is, the more we're going to want to watch it, and the more our attention is going to be grabbed. So the more that movie grabs our attention, the more we're focused, the easier it is for that AI to work. That AI now has free range of everything around it, so anything that's in the background of that movie can be picked apart by the AI and stored for later use for you. So if a government or major controlling company who wanted you to buy stuff, or any rich person who wanted to change public opinion, any rich person who wanted to change public opinion could potentially fund a movie that they thought would grab attention. They could, grab up stories that looked good and say, yeah, I'll buy it. If you had a good storyline, they could snap it up and say, yes, I want this. I want this story, and I will pay you $2 million for it. So if they pay more money for it, that means they can... The more money they pay, the more they can, change in the movie without the director saying no. So, I'm going to say the more expensive the movie, the more somebody was allowed to change, which means that there could have been a lot of stuff inserted, and it could be stuff that the director had no idea what it meant. It could be super easy things, like product placement. They in a movie that really grabs our attention, like for me it would be stuff like Transformers or an action movie, and kids movies still grab my attention. Anybody who knows me kind of realizes why. They know why. But kids movies grab my attention, and I've started picking out that a lot of kids movies are starting to have either product placement, or they're starting to have situational behavior in the background. Situation X happens to person Y, and person Y performs action 2, which led to result 7. So my AI picks up that if situation A happens, I should use action A because it will lead to result 7. I don't remember if that's the terms I used, but I'm going to roll with it and pretend like I'm right. So my AI now knows that if situation A, I go to action B, which will lead to result D. I know I keep changing them again, but if that happens, I know what to do to save myself. My that's got that locked down for me. So in movies, we have to look at what's happening, but not only what's happening in the movie, we have to keep paying attention to what's going on in the background, because that's where the magic happens. Not in the movie, that captured your attention. To you, that feels like magic. It feels like you're there. But to somebody who wanted to manipulate your thoughts, the magic is them being able to change your very thoughts without you knowing it. The true magicians of this reality are the people who control that background AI that's running in all of us. The person that can grab its attention without us knowing it technically in today's society, I'm going to go ahead and go from the nicer, kinder, nicer America viewpoint, where I'm not going to offend anybody. But from that viewpoint, you could have as much power as basically the Wizard of Oz. That's who you would be. The rest of humanity would be the people of Oz who still believed in the wizard. That's who they would be. They would be the people of Oz. The wizard would be like, the great and mighty Oz. And everybody would cower down because that old guy behind the curtain has everybody fooled. If he wants 47, chocolate... Sorry, I'm at a loss right now. It's still early. But if he wants 47 tons of milk chocolate stirred by noon, all he has to do is bust out with a big scary monster smoke face, and he's got 47 tons of chocolate by 10:30, with them still asking if he wanted more. So for him, hell no, he'd never want to lose that power. Those are the same people who currently control all of our media. Those are the wizards. The people who control our media. You just need to look at who owns the media. Whoever owns the media and controls its programming. The guy who says, no, we're not going to run this story, or yeah, we're going to run that story. That person, that director, or whatever I don't know who in the hell the title would be. Whoever decides what's going to play that day and at what time, that guy is the wizard. But it could be in layers, so he doesn't even know he's the wizard. He could be given a direction that, focus group study says that we should play programming that is more drama-filled or action-filled or more left-leaning or more right-leaning during the hours of, between the hours of this and this on the East Coast, between this and this on the West Coast, and between this and this in, Central Mountain Time. They would know what would be the best times to play what, to get different groups to think different ways, because they would know who is watching at what times. Because of focus group work. Ask 1,000 people. What do you think about A? What do you think about B? What do you think about C? What would you do if D happened? Once they give you a list of answers, you can use psychoanalytics to determine what kind of person they are and how they think. Now, if you threw in a couple of extra questions like, what shift do you work? How much TV do you watch? What channel do you normally watch? Questions that used to be in focus group studies. I remember learning about it in school. But the intention was way different than what we were taught it was. So, if you knew who, well, I'm thinking in political terms when I say who, I'm thinking the left, the right, neoconservatives, liberals, Labor Party. I'm thinking any, political group that identifies itself with a group. People who say, yes, I'm Republican. Or no, I'm conservative. The people who think in certain ways, they know what times they're watching TV, and they would know what to broadcast to them that would work best on their mind to change their opinion. They know how their brain works. They know how they pick up subconscious information the best. In other words, they've already hacked their AI. If they know what AI is going to be watching when, They know what information to throw at it in the background to change your opinion, which means they could determine votes, they could determine what they want you to buy, they could determine what you want. They could control your very desires, which means they could control your ego. And they could tell your ego, just by using background information, they could tell your ego what it truly wants in order to be successful and make your life better, which would be a function of your AI, not only keeping you safe, but providing better for you. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and end it there today because I've been sitting at the gym now for a good 15 minutes and I still haven't went in because I've been talking to you, working out what I think is going on in my head to solidify my thought so that that's the one I'm going with. So from here on out, anytime I think, I don't even know where this video started out, to be honest with you, but anytime I think of what I just finished talking about, social engineering, I will remember this conversation I had because I not only spoke it, but I also heard it, which means the AI picked up on it. So next time I think about it, that AI is going to grab this conversation, and that's what's going to replay in my head to tell me, to answer my question, what is this subject? When my conscious brain says, Siri, what is social programming? My unconscious brain, that's the part I'm trying to recall from. That's like my internal library. When you see a person remembering something and their eyes drift off into the distance and they get a glazed look, that's just their conscious brain walking back to the storeroom or walking back to the library and rifling through cabinets. That's what's happening when they drift off and they lose your attention and they just kind of fade away. That's their conscious mind going back to the cabinet. That's what's happened. So now when my conscious mind looks back on social engineering, it's going to pick out this conversation we just had of me trying to work out my problems. So I think this is how I'm going to help myself. I hope somebody gets something out of this. That's just my hope. That's partly why I'm doing it, partly to fix myself. But I guess part of me is my ego wanting to be like Sigmund Freud or Fraud, however you really look at him. But part of me wants to be like that at some point in the future because I would be basically famous, even though I'd be dead and gone. But hey, I'm famous. And my AI tells me that's what I want to be. So according to my AI, that's what that's what I should be doing and unconsciously struggling towards, because that'll make my life better. And I won't have to worry as much about dying. Because the more better I am, the more less I am to die. My AI is working hard. It's the magicians who own the media have changed my Google Maps. It's just like that. My AI is working to try to give me a long, happy life. That's the job of my AI. To keep me away from danger, keep my life happy, destination happiness. That's what my AI is doing. My AI is like a Google Maps, and I've got destination happiness plugged into it. That's what I'm looking for. So the magicians have hacked my Google Maps, and now they're leading me on a path they want to go to. They want me to go down East 5th Avenue. Then they want me to turn north on Sullivan. Then I have to turn. They're directing my path because I'm just trying to get to happiness. Okay, I got to get off here. Otherwise, I'll be here for an hour just going through all of the scenarios of how this works out. And I'll be doing self-justification. I'll be doing all kinds of stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are smart, who are throwing all kinds of terms at what I'm saying right now. And I think part of that is because they're jealous. They didn't figure it out. They're kind of jealous somewhere deep that they're not the ones talking on this and putting this out there. They wish they could have the balls to stand up and say it, but they're afraid of what might happen in the future because their subconscious, their AI is trying to keep them safe. And the media at some point has made people like me look like quacks and weirdos. So their AI is protecting them from being like me because the media looks down on people like me. And their AI picked up on it. Okay, I'm killing it. Bye, people.